The head of ASIO, our main spy agency, last night gave a pretty blunt speech saying he's never seen so many spies here, so many foreign attempts to interfere. But you still get the greedy, the stupid, the ideologues and the powerful telling him to back off.
I'm concerned there are senior people in this country who appear to believe that espionage and foreign interference is no big deal. It's something that can be tolerated or somehow ignored or safely managed. Individuals in business, academia and the bureaucracy have told me ASIO should ease up on its operational responses to avoid upsetting foreign regimes. Now, of course, they're entitled to their views, but the reasons they offer are flimsy, such as all countries spy on each other. We're going to make that information public anyway. It's no different to lobbying or networking. And my favourite, the foreign government might make things difficult for us, and so on. Now, in my opinion, anyone saying these things should reflect on their commitment to Australia's democracy, sovereignty and values, because espionage and foreign interference is deliberately calculated to undermine Australia's democracy, sovereignty and values.
I thought that was the most shocking thing he said last night. And to be honest, I'm not even surprised that some of the people he's talking about are the people in our universities. Because the universities have never gone much for patriotism and Australian values. They snicker, so many of them, at that kind of stuff. And besides, they're now very greedy for the money from Chinese students. Hundreds of thousands of them. Some were also carelessly, this is how reckless they were, carelessly helping China's military with research. And even today, at least 11 of our universities, and the big ones too, they're accepting money from the Chinese dictatorship, can you believe it, to run Confucius centres right on their campuses here to teach Chinese culture. Is that all they're doing? I don't know. But what's so crazy about that is that the Albanese government last week said, well, that's no good. We're going to ban any more Confucius institutes because of the security risk. Yet this government at the same time said, well, look, the 11 we already have, they can still stay. How does that work? One of the ASIO bosses beside himself. Joining me is Michael Shoebridge, a former senior official of our intelligence and defence organisations, is now head of Strategic Analysis Australia. Michael, it's great to see you again. Hey, listen, this is serious, I think. The head of ASIO having to publicly say that we have, in effect, a fifth column, powerful people telling them to go easy on a country that's spying on us. That we must not pressure China and all that kind of stuff. How can it be so bad that the ASIO boss actually needed to say it?
Well, Andrew, I think you described some of the motivations. The big one to me is greed and an easy life. So with China's economy reopening after the COVID-0 policy ending, getting back to business and making pots of money from closing your eyes to national security risks as you deal with Chinese entities and partners makes a lot of sense, unfortunately, to some of our business leaders, some senior officials who want an easy life, and to academia. And that's something we should be deeply concerned about. I think it's extraordinary that the ASIO chief had to say this publicly so that these people are publicly on notice because they won't listen any other way.
That's what I found the most frightening bit. You put your finger right on it. But listen, businesses, I think, greedy. As soon as a guy says, I've got big business in China, and I think, well, I discount the rest. Bureaucrats, that is scary, but we don't know who he's talking about. That is scary because they influence government policy. But for me, perhaps the worst really is still universities because they teach the young. Universities should be for Australia, right? That's what they should be for. And yet we get this. Do they get it?
I think some of them are willfully blind and some of them tell themselves stories about how they're actually doing this for the good of the whole of humanity. Therefore, they don't need to listen to these national security people. And it's a convenient excuse. And I think when they look themselves in the mirror, they must find that difficult. But an excuse is all they seem to need. That's why it'd be interesting to see one university close one of their Confucius centres. They're one of the most egregious examples of this behaviour, and yet they're still open.
That's extraordinary. And it's actually going to come at a cost, because we read now that America wants to start, pumping some money into Australia now with joint defence cooperation deals, AUKUS and all that kind of stuff. But they have a rule that you can't give that money to Australian universities if they've got a Confucius Centre. So some universities are going to have to make a choice.
Well, they will, and they've got to look at the bigger picture. For if they do not produce academic excellence because they make these craven decisions to follow the money, then their business model will become far less valuable, and competitors like American universities will eat their business. And if that happens, the whole nation loses.
And that's without even taking into account many, many well-founded allegations that the universities have been dropping standards in order to cater for huge numbers of foreign students, many of whom do not speak great English. So I just think the universities, this is a very sorry chapter in their history. Michael Shoebridge, thank you so much indeed for your time.